Hello everyone, and welcome to the third episode of the UX show. We are very happy to be here. And first of all, I would want to introduce you to our host. We have Victor Sanchez, who is a Google developer expert, and he's from the Mamori Labs. We have Giga, who is from Jobia AI, and we have a very lovely speaker here. She has an experience at Google and is now working at Astrolabium, helping us all to have a very good UX career. She's Nina Weber, and very glad to have you here.
And I'm very happy to be here as well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I would want to start off by Nina. Could you just give us a brief about like what is Astrolabium and how did you transition from like Google to this, and how you are helping some of us UX folks like me?
Yeah, absolutely. So Astrolabium is a small company that I founded with my former Google manager, actually. And our aim is to help up-level user experiences by teaching both UX professionals, but also companies who don't have UX teams in the moment, how to better look at user requirements, user needs, and how to integrate that into their product development. And then at the same time, we do coaching of UX professionals to help them become more effective and more impactful in their current jobs. And then how I came there, as you said, I have a background in Google. I've been working actually for 18 and a half years at Google in Ireland and later in Zurich as a UX researcher. So I've been leading teams. I have been working as an IC on various products such as YouTube ads, later on cloud and also on Google Play. In various forms, various roles. And I started coaching on the side in G2T coaching, which I hope all of you know and take advantage of as far as you can. And I realized that actually lit me up even more than the work on UX itself, like helping other people unlock their potential and become a better version of themselves, learn and just introduce those clicks where people felt blocked before.
Well, that sounds really fascinating. I believe Victor has some questions. So yeah, Victor.
Definitely so, yes. So obviously, the current market and the struggles for UX experts have been kind of very real, right? As we have been seeing on the past few years. I think, to be completely honest, and we try not to mention AI in every episode, but it comes up. I think it's gonna be harder and harder to kind of go through that if you compare it to 5 or even 10 years before. Sorry, the market have changed quite a bit. So I was wondering how to keep up with what the market is going through. What are kind of your psychological and even preparation tips for that factors that are playing up today as you get ready for this thing?
It's a really, really good question. And I like that you're pointing out the psychological factors as well, because I think that's the most important realization for ourselves, that there are things that we can impact and there are things that we cannot impact, right? And focusing our energy, our time, our thoughts on the pieces that we actually have influence over is really, really important, because it also means we let go of the stuff that we know we can't do anything about. We don't know how things are going to develop, where things are going to be in the future. We can look at where they are now and how we can use AI to our best advantage in the moment, and get to know AI to prepare for changes that might or might not be happening in the market. So yes, the market right now is really tough, and that's not only AI, right? That has a lot to do with the after effects of the pandemic, where especially tech companies had this real boom and like hired way more than in hindsight and looking back than they should have. They, I would say, were greedy. They were really hyped about the opportunities that they saw, and they hired a lot of people that turned out weren't as impactful in the company after the pandemic had ended. And so those waves of layoffs started happening, which led to a situation where on the UX side, but also in the rest of the tech market, right, we see that as well, PMs see that as well. There are way more applicants to open jobs now than there are open jobs. So people who are in the market take significantly longer and have to make more compromises to find a new job, to land a new role, to get a new contract. than they would have 5 years ago, where basically it was very easy with very little experience to land a good paying job just because you were in the field and there was such a need for talent to fill open roles. And so I think it's really important to not panic too much about AI. AI is here. That's just a fact. It's a reality. That's one of the pieces that we can't do anything about. But we can look at what does it actually mean. That means, where is it now? What can it do? What can it not do? What does that mean for us as humans? Where do we still add value? What are the things that AI is really bad at in the moment, which is still a lot of things. And so spending our time, spending our effort and our energy on doing things that actually are going to help us find this new role for ourselves in the market is really important. And that also means learning about AI, right? Like learning at what is it as a tool? How can it help us in our current workflows? When I talk to people, oftentimes they're very inflexible in the way that they react to their counterparts, for example, introducing AI for stuff that they used to own, they used to do.
Yeah.
Instead of leaning in and saying, well, what is it actually that we're trying to achieve? And is AI maybe really a better solution for this than spending my time? And realizing that using AI where it makes sense actually unlocks time for us, unlocks time that we used on sometimes really stupid, repetitive work, right? That meant we weren't able to do the more fun, the more impactful stuff. And kind of like trying to become more open, more curious about like how we can actually make our careers, make our lives easier and more fun with the tools that we now have at hand, I think is a better reaction than to panic and jump on board with all of the doomsday narratives that are at this point pure speculation, right? We simply do not know where we're going to be in a year from now with AI and in the market.
I love that take, right? And I think kind of unlocking your time to do more meaningful, more impactful things where AI is still bad at. I think it's a really good take, and it's kind of that adaptation, right? That require effort on part of the professionals to precisely kind of recognize where, hey, AI can help me here, right? As other techs have done in the past, and just evolve your role as you grow. That's a fantastic answer. Thank you for that. I believe Giga have a question as well.
Yeah. Hi. So you mentioned that in the cross period where lots of people were hired, you could be within the industry and it was easy for you to land a job. And now we're in a different situation where it's tough to penetrate the market. So what do you think, like what separates good UX portfolio maybe from the great one, or as you have been at Google, maybe you have seen candidates and what was the gap between their portfolios, cases? What can be something that our listeners can focus to differentiate themselves from average applicant?
Yeah. Thanks for mentioning the portfolio, because I think not just for designers, but also for other UX roles that didn't use portfolios before, that is becoming a more and more important tool to differentiate themselves from their competition, from other people who are applying for the same roles. So taking your portfolio really seriously and prioritizing bringing that into a really good state. And that also means a state where it's flexible enough for you to be able to adapt it to different openings and to tailor it specifically to one job, right, that you're applying for, is really important. So a portfolio before, a lot of portfolios that I saw years ago in Google were not really necessarily demonstrating a lot of experience, but it was also about like showing technical ability. So a lot of focus in portfolios back in the day was on back in the day, I have to say that too, it was really only designers who did portfolios. Researchers never had portfolios, writers didn't have portfolios. And now that becomes more and more a requirement. And also it becomes, as I said, something that you might want to do, even if it's not required. So you have kind of like this platform to show what you can actually do. And that also means a state where it's flexible enough for you to be able to adapt it to different openings and to tailor it specifically to one job, right, that you're applying for. So a lot of focus in portfolios back in the day was on back in the day, I have to say that too, it was really only designers who did portfolios. Researchers never had portfolios. And now that becomes more and more a requirement. And also it becomes something that you might want to do, even if it's not required. So you have kind of like this platform to show more than what you can put into your CV, which in the moment should be very concise and very short, because recruiters are so swamped with applications that they have very, very little time to look at CVs. So for a CV, you want to be able to tell your story very quickly, very shortly, and that means you might want to use your portfolio to offload some of that story that you want your CV to tell. And so before, there was a lot of focus on shiny, pixel perfect, glossy materials in your portfolio, which becomes less and less important now. The main function of your portfolio is to tell a story about your process. So it's not about the end result, it's about the journey to the end result, right? You want to demonstrate how you were presented with a problem, or how you discovered a problem, what you did in order to define that problem. So how you talked, for example, to stakeholders, to partners, about clarifying why that was a problem, what the impact of the problem was, and why working on it was necessary and a good use of your time. Then you want to guide the audience, and that's usually a hiring manager at the very beginning of the application phase, who looks at the portfolio. You want to take them through that journey. So you want to kind of like make it possible for them to follow you on the double diamond curve, right? Like of the process of how you went wide, exploring different solutions, how you thought about measuring what was a good solution, how that helped you narrow down to a specific solution, how you went on developing that and testing that, and then how you landed a final result. That's what your portfolio should be focusing on, no matter what role you're in the moment. So helping a hiring manager understand what's transferable about your skills, rather than this was the specific project, that's what I did, that's the solution, that's the design I came up with. It is about how would I treat a similar problem in your team? How can I give you confidence about me being able to solve that similar problem that's different though on your team when it comes up? And does that fit into how you approach projects, how you approach problems?
Amazing. Yeah, I had the follow-up question regarding like how candidates should prioritize in and be going deep depth in a single project, or have like breadth of across the multiple methods to stand out. But I think you already gave an answer that we need to have really one good project at least to, you know, show every small detail and kind of take the hiring managers through the journey, how you started and how you ended up with the result. So
I actually recommend having like almost like a small catalog, and so that goes to the question of like what tool should I use, right, to create my portfolio? Should it be a website or should it be something else? And to me, being able to be flexible with what you present in your portfolio is really important in the current market as well. That goes back to what I said before about being able to tailor your application materials to a specific opening. So you might want to have a small number, say 4 or 5 different projects that you can present, but you don't send in all of those. So I like the flexibility, for example, that something like Google Presentation gives you for a portfolio, because it allows you to create a different order and a different collection of projects to present for a given opening. So you have your 4 or 5 cases that you've created in a really nice way somewhere in this catalog, in this core thing, and then you take, say, 2, maximum 3. So a small number is really better, because at this point, the person who looks at the portfolio has more time than that very swamped recruiter in the beginning. There has been some filtering, some selection going on already, but we're still talking about several minutes rather than half an hour that this person has time to read through those materials, right? So it needs to be concise. What you want to achieve is for them to feel, yes, this is relevant. So if you do have a project that is in a similar field, in a similar domain, that is definitely helpful. But what you also want to achieve is for them to be able, again, as I said, to follow the process, but then also see all of the relevant skills, all of the relevant experience covered as much as possible. And oftentimes you don't have that in one project, right? So it makes sense to have a second project in where you show than other skills. And the relevant experience that requires you reading through the description, the opening, the job description very thoroughly, right? And identify what are they actually looking for, what are the non-negotiables in this opening, what are the nice to haves, and then really match them to what you have in your CV, in your portfolio, and highlighting those in both of those assets, making sure that you take out the fluff, which in this case is all of the stuff that's not relevant for this opening, so that the really impactful, the really relevant stuff is more visible, because you reduce to what they're actually expecting and hoping to see.
Sounds good. I think really good answer and tips for our listeners.
Great.
Yash
Yeah,
or Victor?
So I would want to ask something that some of our viewers might be already having a job, and some of them might be looking for a job. So this question is mainly for those who are like in a UX job and they want to hold their position and they care about this job safety. So would you make them say that they would have to work more so that AI does not take their job or something like that? Or would you say that they should just keep dabbling in the UX market and try to just be fit for like if any of their job roles just drop, then they can again come back and be like, I can just come back to the market and I will be able to find a job again. So what's your take on our job safety and in general about the market and how fragile it is?
That's a really tough one, right? And I don't think there's a general answer that is right for everyone. I think it goes back to what I said before about understanding what you have influence over and what you just need to accept as this is what it is right now. And there's a certain amount of uncertainty about things that you can't control, that are random, and where you are at the hands of your employers right now, and you don't really know how responsibly they're treating that. And so to understand what you have control over and what you want to control and what you want to invest energy and time into, it's also really important to take time to understand what are my priorities and not my employer's priorities. Understanding your employer's priorities is also important. That's the next step. But first most is really understanding what is key to me right now. Is it job security? Is it growing? Is it having a good life? Because those might not all be possible in the same job, right? So understanding that is going to give you more clarity about, again, which of the things that you actually have influence over to prioritize and to really work on. So I think to a certain degree, we need to accept that there is less certainty about jobs than there was 3 or 4 years ago. And that's not great. That sucks, but it is one of those things where we can't really change anything, right? There are things we can maybe do slightly to work into a direction where if we all band together, employers at one point are going to have less power over us by trying to not accept like everything, but also understanding that we have less leverage than they have. I think that's just pragmatism in the current moment. And now I went on a tangent, and I'm not sure if I covered all of the points that were in your question. So please remind me if there's something that I forgot with going on.
I think that you have, and I think that there is one more thing that I want to bring up more like a follow-up is like if there is any kind of framework that you would want them to have so that they are like not too worried that they are putting a lot of extra effort, but and where to put that kind of effort. Should it be like on networking, on personal growth, or should it be like more on the company so that they can just show that they are the top performer at every week or quarter or so?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. And I think you're already hinting at like strategies there as well. So since there is not, so actually I need to say, right, I don't know if there's less job security than there was before. I was very surprised by the layoffs. I hadn't expected job security to be, I had expected to have more job security back when that started. And it turned out that was not a realistic assessment of the situation. Right now, I would say job security is something that we cannot rely on anymore. And so in order to make ourselves dependent on our current employer, it is a very good idea to always be prepared to have to look for a new job or to be a step ahead and to kind of like have options open already. And that means, you want to make sure that, going back to the portfolio, right, you work on your portfolio while you're still employed, while you still have access to all of the information that you need, maybe also to assets that you want to show, making sure that you have, of course, permission to show those assets, and finding workarounds if you do not have permission to share assets. If you do that when you are still in your job, you have way less pressure and you have access. So use those wisely. Same for networking, as you mentioned, right? Like, you're much more attractive as a networking partner oftentimes to people when you're still employed. So use that. That doesn't mean like once you're not employed anymore, you should not be doing networking, but I think it is also something that is far easier to get into a habit of. If you're not already doing this when you're still employed, it takes less mental effort. There's less of a barrier if you start that when less depends on it. So both keeping your CV updated, keeping your portfolio updated, starting looking into your network and making sure you keep that healthy and build it out. Do that while it doesn't cost you as much. And then also do create a habit of applying to jobs, even if you're not actively looking. Again, it's way less psychologically demanding if you do that, if you kind of like, if nothing depends on it, right? It only costs you time. And so I would really recommend make that time to create that habit, to also practice. Like, it's really hard right now to get invitations to interviews, even if you have a ton of experience, even if you have a lot of relevant experience and a good job title, you're not as sought after as you might have been 4 years ago. And so getting in once you need to is surprisingly hard. And that can be very, very depressing and again, costly in terms of psychological points if you need to do it then. So start doing that when not as much or nothing depends on it, because it also gives you practice. Interviewing is something that you need to practice. And when you're looking, you should not use real interviews as kind of like the practice opportunity. So if you're in a job and you haven't been interviewing for a long time, try it out, just because it's going to set you up and give you kind of like feedback for how you're going to perform and what you might want to work on for that point in time when you really need it. And as an added benefit, it also gives you data points on your value in the market, which we're talking about the market being tough for people who are looking for employment, right? But that also obviously has ripple effects, and it also affects people in jobs. So people who are employed, my clients, I hear that a lot, have this notion of like, I can ask for less than I was able to ask for 3 years ago. I have less power to ask for promotion. I have less power to ask for interesting projects. I have to be happy to have a job at all. And that's something it's very dangerous, because it's a slippery slope into this sense of like not having agency, of like not of diminishing like your own value when you think about that. So going outside and getting offers is a really good way, for yourself to understand what your value in the market is, and then also as something to create pressure to your current employer to give you what you need, what you want, right? Give you that raise, give you a more interesting project, give you a promotion, because then you have leverage to say, well, otherwise I'm just going to go take this other job.
That's fantastic. And I think life is about compromises, right? And you mentioned here a bunch of compromises that we are taking whenever we are employed or unemployed, right? As of that part. I was wondering, as a kind of finishing question for this, it's true that the market has changed a lot, but it also has changed a lot for startups, in the sense that now they find themselves in a sea of talent. And I was wondering, when you are preparing to interviewing for a startup or for a large company, how do you think that they value UX professionals different? How do you prepare for those kind of very different environments, right? Because at the same time that, yes, kind of keeping your job at these larger corporations has become much, much harder, there is also plenty of opportunities on smaller companies that now they see kind of a gold rush of talent, right? So how do you compare both of them, and what do you think that are the compromises that they're going to take both in those interviews and in those positions in terms of how UX is handled at a super large level and a startup? And you are in the perfect position to answer since you have been at both, right?
So my startup is different because we're only 2 people and we're not growing, right? So we're not hiring talent. So that's not the experience that you're looking for probably. But what I'm hearing from clients when they are looking at offers or at applying at different companies, right? There are trade-offs, obviously. Like in large companies and corporations, you have like much more differentiation. You can specialize on stuff. You get usually in large companies better pay. Whereas in smaller startups, early on, especially before they go to scale up stage, you oftentimes see less base salary. You obviously have like more of a risk that this company is not going to go anywhere, and there's less outsourcing stuff. So you're going to be expected to have be more of a generalist, do more things, which can be super interesting for some people and which is not interesting for other people as well. So all of that goes back to you, if you're looking right, understanding what it is that you're looking for, what your priorities are, what you want, where you want to go. And I would really recommend understanding that while you understand that you're going to have to make compromises, right? But it's still like so much easier to make a compromise and understanding that the compromise is only a temporary thing when you know where you actually want to go ultimately. I think one mistake that people in this situation, but also in other situations, make very often is that they feel like they're taking a decision and then they're stuck with that decision. If I decide to go to a startup today, I'm going to be in a startup for the rest of my career, which obviously is not true, right? Like I can take a decision for a job today and then keep looking and take a different job tomorrow if I don't like that. And kind of like embracing that mindset more about being flexible is something that I think has always been important, but it is more obviously important today because of the uncertainty that we're living through. Your question also touched on like, maybe it was focused on that, like how more talent is available for startups to snatch up now, that they have access to a different kind of talent pool than they had before. And for the UX field, I find that is very interesting because one thing has not changed, which is that a lot of startups are engineering driven or PM driven and not UX driven. So despite the fact that there now is a lot of UX talent available, a lot of those startups like go through the motions as they did 5, 6, 7 years ago when talent was much harder to get by, where they don't know that they actually would profit from having that talent on board early on. And so this is something I think also that candidates can, or like people who are looking for jobs now, can take as an opportunity. And if they are interested in entering the startup world, create pitches for not just themselves, but also UX as a function, right? And include that in their networking. Like if you're interested in moving into the startup world and there are no openings there, that might very much have to do with those founders not being at a point yet where they have realized that, hey, actually UX would benefit us greatly, and introducing yourself and trying to have those conversations and see if there's something coming out of that in terms of job opportunities or collaborations.
And I think that's a great mindset, right? To have essentially become the solution to the problem they don't know yet that they had. I had to say, you have been today the solution to many of our problems. We have learned so much. And as it usually happens when that's the case, time flies. It's been almost half an hour since we got Nina on with us. I wanted to thank you again, Nina, for your time today. It has been an absolute pleasure. For all of you viewing at home, Nina, where can we find you in social networks? Where can we learn more about you and your company? Just so everyone watching at home can follow, and who knows, maybe even be a customer as part of those services of Astrolabium. So where do we find you?
So you can find me either on LinkedIn, on our Astrolabium page, or on Nina Weber. That's my handle there. Or you can find us through our website, which is astrolabium.me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone, for the time. Yash, Giga, always a pleasure. Nina, thank you so much. Have a good one, everyone. Cheers.
Guys, thank you so much for having me. Bye.
Thank you.
Everyone.